That is carried. Thank you. And now we'll go on to, where are we, the Auckland Southern Rural Strategy. I'm sure Councillor Baker will like to move this, and I'm happy to second, but we'll come to Jacques and Eva and Claire and Jacques. Kia ora. Thank you very much for all the work done on this. We'll just have a brief presentation and then we'll go to questions. Kia ora. Thank you.
Kia ora koutou. Thanks for the introduction. I'm Claire Gray, the manager of the Growth and Spatial Strategy team. I've got Jacques, Victor and Eva Zombori, who is a senior advisor in my team with me today. And we're here to talk about the Southern Rural Strategy. I'll take you through a few slides focusing on the context, and then Eva will talk briefly about some of the more practical aspects. So firstly, the purpose of the report. It's got two main aspects in the report and the recommendations. So firstly, to formally commission the Southern Rural Strategy, and secondly, to establish a political working group to provide some direction on that work. And we'll talk a bit more about those in a bit more detail through these slides. A bit of background or context. So the FDS was adopted, as you know, at the end of last year, and that was a legislative requirement and was consulted on. It was debated on here and ultimately adopted. It's Auckland's long-term land use and development framework, and directs, the overarching direction is that most growth is in the existing urban area. Some growth is in specific greenfield or future urban locations, and that there's limited growth in the rural areas. So that overarching future development strategy framework remains, but the Southern Rural Strategy would provide more detail and set a future state for the Southern Rural area. The FDS also directs the council to prepare this rural strategy looking at the south first, and that's really because of the tensions that are in the southern rural area, particularly around urban development on the one hand, and on the other hand, rural productivity, highly productive soils, horticulture, agriculture, and changing environmental requirements like those in the NPS-FM, National Policy Statement on freshwater management. So the purpose of the strategy, well, it's to deliver a 30-year strategy for the southern rural area, and the map up there shows the rough boundary, which is rough at this stage. We'll refine it as we engage with different people and groups, but it shows that all of the south and the southeast, kind of beyond the urban extent, is covered, would be covered, and it's important to consider that whole area, the relationships between the different towns and settlements, the different uses, and including those across the local authority boundary in the Waikato. The content of the strategy, some of the issues and opportunities we know about already, and these are outlined at a kind of high level in the future development strategy. We've also set out some in the scoping document, which is attached as Appendix A to this report. We know that's not everything though, and we met with the Rural Advisory Panel and the relevant local boards when we were preparing the scoping document, and we're starting to get an idea of some of the other issues and challenges in the south. But the content will continue to develop as we speak to the communities in the south, and we get a better understanding of what's happening there. And the last 3 bullet points on the slide is about the outcome or the direction that we think the strategy should provide. So how that's done and what it looks like will really be in response to what we hear through the engagement and the consultation. But those are some of the aspects that we intend to provide direction on. I'll pass over to Eva now to talk through the last few slides.
Thank you, Claire. So in terms of engagement, we are planning to talk to a variety of groups and stakeholders, first and most of all local communities, which will consist schools, sports clubs, environmental groups, business and other associations, or religious communities in the south, relevant hapu and iwi, relevant stakeholders, including farming and rural productivity sectors, key employers and landowners, and neighbouring local authorities, and Claire referred to that in the previous slide. Also, we are going to engage with infrastructure and service providers and relevant central government agencies such as Ministry of Education, Ministry of Health, and similar. We are also planning to carry out a targeted public consultation on the draft strategy. So the timeline covers essentially the next year, so we are hoping to finish or complete this strategy within a year time. After the endorsement, hopefully today, we will commence our engagement, which will go through up until the end of June. It is to consider the seasonal nature of some of our communities and stakeholders. We will also carry out a targeted public engagement, as I mentioned earlier, later in the year in October, and complete, hopefully, the work by the end of March next year, 2025. We also ask the committee to allow us to set up a political working group for this strategy, which would provide direction to the staff, to us, in the development of the strategy. And the proposed working group would contain the chair and or the deputy chair of this committee, the chair and deputy chair of Franklin Local Board, who already expressed their wish to be part of this working group, Franklin Board Councillor, and Hokurau Independent Maori Statutory Board members. And the next steps will be, after the endorsement, to establish this political working group and prepare an engagement plan that includes working with iwi and local board services and working across the council family in the process of preparing this strategy. And I pass it back to Claire, I think.
That's the end of the presentation. Thanks,
Cool.
Chair.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the work on this fairly quickly post the FDS, so it was part of the work through that, so I really, really appreciate it. Are there any questions? Sounds good. Interestingly, it's all very straightforward, so thank you very much. I think Councillor Dalton was going to be on the... Yep, there we go. We're just deleting me off there. I think we can get you to step back. I don't think there's any questions, so we'll just go to debate. Councillor Baker might want to say something as the move on.
Look, just very briefly, just thanks to the team and yeah, just put it up there to let's get it cracking. It'll give some shape and form to development that may or may not occur down in the south, which needs to happen. So good work.
Thanks again. Are there any other speakers? Yeah, once again, appreciated. It will really help us on our journey on the south. So kia ora, and thank you, Councillor Baker, for your work on this too. All those in favour? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Carried. Thank you. Right, on